Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast. I'm Dan, he's John.
Good morning.
And we're here today to answer your questions. We're going to dive straight into them. But first, John, how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Yeah, very warm this week, isn't it?
I've gone for a jacket for those listening as well because I haven't ironed my t-shirt and I'm anticipating the comments to be A, got your legs out again, and B, haven't ironed your t-shirt, you scruff. So I'm wearing a jacket as well. It is quite warm.
I don't iron my shirts.
I've got a hand steamer.
We have the little spray from like Lenore or something.
Yeah, not sponsored.
No, you spray it and then like it takes the creases out.
Yeah, okay.
It's supposed to, but it doesn't for me. As most people probably see on this podcast, that this one is a dark shirt, so you can't tell anyone.
No, it's better than the one I'm wearing, trust me. Okay, let's go and sail through these questions. And this podcast is sponsored by Saily, and all the information you need is in the description down below. Di, first of all, asks, following on from your previous Q&A, although you don't want to leave Villa Park, how would you feel if they dismantled it brick by brick, modernised it, brackets increased capacity, and moved it to a different location? I mean, probably physically impossible to kind of take it apart brick by brick and rebuild it again like a Lego.
I also wouldn't advise if they take it brick by brick because, and this is different, but you know those IKEA Pax wardrobes?
Yeah.
If you take those apart and then put them back, all of the holes are much bigger, and then the people who actually, handy will explain this much better than me. But once you take out all of the nails and whatnot, you put them back in, the hole's bigger, which means it's less stable.
So if you did Villa Park brick by brick and rebuilt it back together, then it wouldn't be as good anyway.
Yeah, surely it wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't be safe. I get the point. Like,
we don't want to leave Villa Park because we envisage that Villa will build a bowl generic stadium. If you could have Villa Park again,
we can amend that to
but 70,000 instead of 42.
If the dimensions are the same and everything looks visually the same.
To an extent, I think that's probably more palatable. But again, like we said on the last one, where do you pop it?
Yeah,
in Solihull or something. Like that's not Aston Villa, then, is it?
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of my point. Like, I had 2 points on it. One was that I don't want to be taken out and be put. Like, I get if you put us in the NEC, you're next to the airport, you're next to where the new metro would be, give or take, like around there, because it comes off of the airport as well. So yeah. Listen, I just don't want to leave, and I don't think that would be the case. I don't think you can rebuild it looking like that. You can't just rebuild the whole end. Surely not. I just don't think it would be the same.
Do you reckon, taking away the kind of logistics of it, do you think if it is identical but it's in somewhere else, and it is exactly the same seat that you sit on, like physically the same one, is it still the same because it's not? Do you know what I mean? Is part of it not the actual like infrastructure? It's like the vibe, for want of a better word. Yeah,
and this is something that I always think about when teams move stadium. The people you sit with and what people are supposed to do. Like, don't get me wrong, if you've said, okay, we're going to rebuild the whole tent, and somehow they do literally rebuild the whole tent, it's exactly the same. That would be different because you would be able to, like, clearly this is where you go to stand up and make noise, blah, 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 as you would hope to do in most stadium, but we know that if you sit in the Trinity, it's not going to be the same experience as sitting in the Hole, is it? But then if you move stadium to something that is different, where does that noise? What's the? I'm just singing section because that is not the right thing. But do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, in which stand is your? Yeah. So.
Okay, it's not going to happen anyway.
I don't think it's possible to do it. Kind of as it is anyway.
Another stadium-related one that seems to be doing the rounds quite a bit at the moment are from Dave and loads of others. What are your thoughts on the naming rights for Villa Park? I've seen a few different rumours on social media, and is this true or not? Because we don't know. This is more so for me anyway. What are your opinions on if this was to happen? I'm kind of okay with it, and I get it if it was to happen. I think as long as it wasn't something embarrassing and it sounded silly, and I'm not going to give you an example, I am going to give you an example for another stadium, but the Bolton's Tough Sheet Community Stadium, whatever it is, sounds like tough shit, doesn't it? And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they like that. Wes Eden's company, is it Fortress Investment or something like that?
Fortress Villa Park.
If it was Fortress Villa Park, I mean, again, that's a little bit MLS to me, to be honest, to call your own stadium officially a fortress, because it is at the moment. What about when it isn't?
Oh my God,
So if it's something that kind of feels okay or sounds okay, because to us, right, if we're saying a match on Saturday, we're going to Villa Park. If it's the something Villa Park Arena, it's still we're going to Villa Park.
Yeah.
But every time Sky intro a game or any other company, it will say at the bottom, the blah, 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 something Villa Park Arena, officially it will be called that. but to everybody else and to everybody, opposition fans, they will say, "Oh yeah, I'm an Everton fan and we're at Villa Park at the weekend."
Yeah,
it will still be that.
It will always be Villa Park for as long as we stay there. And I'm with you in terms of I don't mind if it brings in X amount of revenue, and I think it would bring in. It wouldn't bring in a huge amount, of course it wouldn't, but it would bring in.
I've seen people say things on social media like, "Oh, if it's 50 million a year, like anything, it's going to be 5 to 10 at most, based off what other clubs."
And if we're in European competition, and then we're as we are now, for example, if we sold the naming rights tomorrow, I think we'd get a decent amount, an amount that's worth it, basically.
Yeah, if it's like 6 or 7 million a year. Is that worth being called the something out of Adidas Villa Park Arena?
I think it would be a worthwhile thing to do to bring in a sizable amount of money. Nothing that's going to be game changing, but if you have the options of do you want this amount of which is over 10 million or not, well, I'd rather have that. Yeah. And then if it's called take the Everton name for example, is it the Hill Dickinson? Yeah. If that was, I mean, it sounds weird to be honest, but if that was a Villa Park, I'd be like, I'd stomach it because it's like, well, we're getting X amount of millions and we need to, really, because of different reasons. But for Everton, I thought it was weird because what do you call that?
They're going to call it Bramley-Moore Dock, aren't they still, I think?
I would probably call it the Hill Dickinson. Is it the Hill Dickinson? I think,
I think it is, yeah. If anything, it's worked. The sponsorship.
For them it has, yeah.
We know what
but
it is.
I would hate people to call our stadium by a company name. It's just that everyone would just call it Villa Park.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a point that you'd make now anyway, but the training ground.
Yeah, I think there's a bigger package at play here.
Yeah, it's something that we haven't tapped into yet.
There's no sponsor on the front of this. It doesn't necessarily need to be Patano. It could be another company.
Yeah, anything, yeah.
You could have the something Bodymore Training Heath complex sponsored by so-and-so. You know, you could have a bigger package before you raise ticket prices, for example, has always been my kind of argument. So I would stomach it if it meant fans
I believe that was raised
in some way.
That was raised in the FAB as well, wasn't it?
I think
Fan
so.
Advisory Board that we have no training sponsor. There are ways that we haven't actually tapped into yet, which is quite mad considering the revenues that we need to be making.
Yeah. Okay, all right, let's move on to avillafan.com, who says, which player from the academy do you feel could make a breakthrough into the first team this season? Is there anybody this season?
Being brutally honest, I'd struggle to find a player that would move into it this season. If you're asking me what players am I most excited by, that's different.
Okay, answer that instead then.
Okay. I really like George Hemmings, the midfielder. I think he's 18. Played alongside Aidan Borland. Aidan Borland actually won the Scholar of the Year. Obviously, Villa's under 18s had a fantastic campaign. Won the Premier League North, Premier League South, and played Premier League North champions Man City in the Premier League final and won that as well. Obviously, they won the Youth Cup as well against Man City too. So a lot of exciting players in that age bracket. But as we know from down the years, having won the FA Youth Cup before a couple of times, there's only so many players that make it into your team. I don't want to miss anyone out here, but when we won it with the Louis Barry Chukwuemeka team, if you're looking at Chukwuemeka's gone on to do, don't know where he is now.
Dortmund.
I think he was on loan at Dortmund and then didn't really go quite to plan. So his career's at a bit of a crossroads, but if he stayed at Villa, he would have had a chance to play for us for sure. Bogard. You had Barry in there.
I find judging academy football really difficult because I don't watch enough of it to be able to sit here and say, oh, this player looks good or whatever. But I think when you see things like the retain list that comes out every year and there'll be players on there that you're kind of familiar with and it's like, oh, we've let them go now.
The release list, yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of think like, well, I've heard of him and he was decent in this one game I watched, but he's clearly not good enough because we've now released him. So I don't really...
Yeah,
I don't care because it's important that there is that kind of
I think what you're saying is you kind of leave those decisions to the people who are qualified to make them, and we will see what happens.
Because someone might score 20 goals in a season and win the FA Youth Cup, and then a year later they get released. It's like, well, why am I getting excited about a player then that I'm probably never going to see play for Villa?
I like George Hemmings because he comes from Forest, and no, that's why. But I'm saying he came from Forest to join Villa as an exciting prospect. And whenever I've watched him, he's been one of the better players on the pitch. Obviously, you had Brannigan. He scored the really nice goal against City as well. Lots of those players for their age group, fantastic, and obviously because they've done so well. But again, another thing making us at senior football. So I don't want to kind of I'll pick, and then I really like Ruth as well, the centre half, left-sided centre half, who joined from Luton a year or two back now, and can't help but when you watch him remind me of Tyrone Mings a little bit. So yeah, like him too. But I'm not going to kind of pick out loads of players because I think it just kind of sets false expectations of what that can become, because it's not the case in modern football that 4 of those players become first-team players and play for you and start for you.
No, they might have decent professional careers at like League One level or something, but that's pretty irrelevant to Aston Villa.
The right back as well, Tristan Rowe.
Yeah,
I think he had interest from Chelsea previously, and it's probably on the radar of a few clubs still. I think there might be a Championship move lined up for him for a loan, so that's a player to keep an eye on for sure. Played for the England youth side as well the other day. So yeah, like lots of exciting players, but it's another thing altogether, making that bridge.
Okay, let's do one question about PSR. Everyone's favourite or most hated topic. We did do a whole episode about Villa's finances that will all still be relevant if you want to go and find that on the feed. It's with Dave Powell. VillaFan88 asks, is there a big concern that as the clock ticks towards 30th of June, that there is a chance that we have to sell someone at less than market value in order to meet PSR? It's all very quiet on outgoings at the moment. It's all very quiet on incomings as well. I'd be amazed if Villa signed anybody before July. I think that's basically what we've kind of said before. You have an expectation that Ollie Watkins is worth 70 million. Probably poor example because I already hear people going, oh, he's not worth that anyway. But roughly, right, Youri Tielemans is worth 60, let's say. If we are desperate to sell somebody because we are about to be in trouble and somebody offers 30, you kind of have to take it to get out of trouble, and that's way less than market value. And that's kind of been my thing with PSL.
As an example.
As an example. I'm not saying we're 30 million short or Tielemans is for sale and it's going to be half price basically.
But we'll just go back to last season.
But clubs know that Villa are in trouble. They have to sell. He's probably worth 50, but let's try a bid with 30 and see if they accept it. Yeah. That's less than market value. I think that's PSR.
It's something that we've mentioned when Louise went. Firstly, that his price was lower, but also find the buyer that wants to help you out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, last summer was much more intense than this summer. No, am I scared that Villa aren't going to make the money or whatever? No, not really. But last summer, Damien and Monchi, in an interview, made it very clear like how much they were working around the clock to solve these problems, and how they were chasing Louise around. Well, they weren't chasing him around Brazil, to be fair, but he was in Brazil, and it was a really difficult deal to do. Different agents with Brenner and Ealing Jr. as well, so very complicated. Once they got that over the line, it was a massive relief for them. Obviously, they sold Duran as well, didn't they, in January? Part of me thinks maybe that was because
take some of the pressure off a little bit.
Like I think maybe part of them probably thought literally that, like, this is a player that we can sell now, that we don't have to sell knowing that we have to do it within a certain amount of days, because that could happen in the future, be it next summer or next January. I'm not saying this summer, but yeah, I think where possible they'd always like to avoid that, because that is a thing now with PSR. You need to find a buyer and someone that's going to help you out, basically. That's a complication I don't think many people would think about without being involved in those deals. You've got to... it's all well and good saying, right, yeah, we're going to sell this player, and it's worth about 20 million. Yeah, but as is the case in business, if you're not in a powerful position in that negotiation, then the odds are that price is going to get much lower than what you'd like.
I don't want to talk about PSR. We did a whole episode about it. If you want more about that, go back on the feed and find it. Let's move on. Nada says, unless Dean moves on, we seem to be covered in the left-back/left centre-back positions. So what do you think the plan is for Yasin Oshkan?
I think it's Oshkan.
Oshkan?
Alone would be my...
Do you think if Dean left, he would be in and around it somewhere, that Matson's first choice? I think
he'd have to really impress. I know he played left-back at times for... pretty much 50-50, I think, left back and centre back for his club. Was it Kasımpaşa, I think?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it'd be a lot to ask of him. I know he's just broken into the Turkish team and he's doing everything he can to get himself up to speed quickly. He's taking private English lessons. He's been obviously working overtime in terms of on the training pitch, because you have to. No, I think it alone would probably be earmarked for him.
What kind of level is that, do you think? Obviously he's got to play, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'd like to see him play for a team who are obviously in one of the big 5 leagues, not going back to Turkey or anything like that. Again, that will be determined by what Emery sees, though, because if he doesn't think he's ready to play for a Lens in France or something, then, well, yeah, send him to where he's going to play and where he's going to improve. Don't put him in a team where he's not going to get the minutes that he needs.
Like 20 appearances for Valencia or 50 appearances for Brest. Whatever.
I think Brest in the Champions League last season, Valencia was from relegation. But yeah, I don't know where Brest are this season actually in the league. But I take your point. Yeah, I'd have thought alone.
Yeah. Okay. King 81 says, last summer we spent 133 million. Let's just say those figures are correct. On Dobbin, Ilin Jr., Archer, Baranachea, Philogene, Anana, Matson, and Barkley. Does this business fill you with confidence that we can get the right players this summer? I think last summer's window cost us Champions League by depleting our squad for the first 5 months.
I mean, Emery even said it. He said to the players halfway through the first half of the season, he said to them, like, we need to, or made it clear that we need to bring players in January to help you.
Yeah.
And that meant that some players would be playing less, but ultimately, as a team effort, you would be getting a better chance of returning to the Champions League and that sort of thing. So I think everyone sort of bought into that as, okay, well, we need additions, we need to strengthen. Philogene didn't work out, but in the end, Villa also got a good fee for him. Mm-hmm. He would have stayed if Villa didn't receive £20 million from Ipswich, and we would have seen what he had to give in the second half of the season. By what he did at Ipswich, probably not a whole lot. But yeah, it's right. Villa did undersell themselves, I guess, at the start of the campaign.
I suppose the point is that is a poor window. We need to make strength additions this summer. Do you trust them to not make a poor window again?
Yeah, I wouldn't class last summer as a poor window, though. I think it was a window that was very difficult considering the constraints we had and what we had to do.
Is that not this window, though? Is this window not going to be difficult and have constraints?
As in, we had to make a lot of money before June 30.
Yeah.
But you are right. What we know now, we have better information about what the squad needs now than what we did last summer. Yeah. I think is the point. We played in the Conference League, obviously, and we dealt with it just about and finished fourth. We probably underestimated a little bit the Champions League toll. I think I did and we did as well. I think we went through the squad and we said, we've got a lot of players, but are they good enough to come in for the player that drops out?
Yeah.
That wasn't the case because that changed. Obviously, in January, Asensio and Rashford instead of Philogene and someone else, I think. Maybe there wasn't even a slot for that other player. Oh, no, it was Duran, of course, wasn't it? Yeah. So you're changing and swapping players, but ultimately the level of the squad went up. And now we know that even in the Europa League, we're going to have a squad that is, as I always say, whoever the secondary player is, they need to be thinking, I should be starting in these games. And we have that now, whoever we sell, because selling is always part of the game. Monchi's already said himself. That player needs to be replaced with the player who's at least at the level or thereabouts.
I think it will be a difficult window, and again, the finance thing aside a little bit, if we don't make up the money this summer, we will have to do it before June next year because of the Champions League money drop-off.
Yeah, Villa don't have the £100 million worth of Champions League revenue.
But they also don't have the poor accounts of 3 years ago by next summer either. So that kind of offsets a little bit, I think. However, you balance it two ways, and I think Villa will probably just deal with it next summer. I said this to Dave. It almost feels like Villa's strategy is kind of go as big as you can now and deal with the consequences at the end of the season. A little bit.
Yeah, but
pressure that you don't really want to deal with, but if it gets you into a different competition, it's worth it. Because you might say, well, sell Martinez and Kamara now to satisfy next year's accounts.
Yeah.
Or you hold on to them now, try and get into the Champions League, but you have to sell them next summer anyway. Mm-hmm. Because you've got to make up that shortfall somewhere.
Yeah, and again, if you look at what we did in January, that was a lot of business, more business than many clubs have ever done in the Premier League era, probably, in terms of what we sold. The amount we sold over £100 million, brought in some big players. So the January window as well, usually it's quite a dull one, and maybe you bring in a player or for a squad. Or we did lots, and I expect us to probably do quite a lot again if we are either short in a position or two. Or if, again, the right bids arrive, because as we just said in the previous question, you don't want to be waiting around to sell players, because that's when your negotiation power is diminished.
Very quick one, I think, something I've not really thought about from Ben. Does anybody know what happened to Hercules the mascot? No, I've not seen him for ages.
What year did he disappear?
I don't know. I feel like we need like missing posters.
Pre-COVID, wasn't it?
Must have been, yeah. I seem to remember like definitely after promotion. I'm sure he was milling about, like walking around the touchline,
Like
touching the hug line.
touching the line, yeah. I genuinely don't know. I mean, do I know? I swear I've seen Bella though. I've seen.
Yeah, she's still about.
She walked past me the other day.
Yeah, she's defo still about. Actually, I don't know about after promotion, because obviously the first couple of years were no fans anyway.
That's what I'm saying. COVID, yeah.
So it must have been maybe the championship days. Maybe Hercules' promotion bonus was too big.
It's bizarre though. Isn't it?
Had to let him go.
Why would it? Yeah.
I don't know.
Pure profit.
Sold it for pure profit. Wasn't there a kid at one point? Do you remember that?
A kid.
I'm sure there was a third line that was supposed to be like a child.
What I remember is when they'd. Oh, it's probably going on a bit too much now, but in like the corner between Doug Ellis and Holt, where they sometimes move the goals,
and they just sit down there.
Yeah, they just sit there.
There's 3 lions wearing Acorns Nike shirts. I don't know if it means that it was all the way back from like 2010.
So they had a separation.
Hercules and Bella and Chip.
Sorry.
Does anyone remember Chip?
Chip.
The child?
That's one of the worst names you could give to a lion.
Okay, here's another one. Look, sat on the sides like you just said.
Yeah.
So Hercules in toy form still existed as recently as the Christian Perslow round badge. But I don't think he's been a physical, pitch side presence like Bella has in her kazoo shirt. The next question is from the Claret and Blue mailbag. More on that in a little bit. This is from Dan. With Martinez looking like he might be off, do you think it would ruin his legacy if he went to Man United?
Great question.
Dan basically says, yes, it would. He's got aspirations and looks for a new challenge, and that's not United. So surely it would be a money-based decision anywhere else in the Premier League, and he's destroyed his legacy. I think I agree. I think any Premier League club would have a tinge of what are you doing.
Tarnish would be the word I'd use.
United specifically, I'd lose a lot of respect for Emi Martinez.
I'm saying this as kind of neutral as I possibly can. Players go to Man United because they want to be the player that helps them become what they used to be. Whether people like that or not, that's just true. That's why Cunha's gone there. I'm going to be different to what's come before. I'm going to be the player that helps get this club back to the top. And maybe Martinez becomes that. And if that's what he wants to do, that's his prerogative.
Yeah.
However, of course, Villa fans will look at that and say, well, we don't like it.
And they're not even in Europe this year. Like, why go there now?
Like it. Yeah, and that you're swapping what you have for us, a team that it's difficult because Man United have won trophies recently.
Yeah.
We haven't. But to win a trophy with Villa,
it is that interesting position as well that he's not a centre-back going in there with another 4 competing for a position. Mm-hmm. He's going there and he's better than Onana.
Yeah.
So he plays straight away.
You could go there and be better than Onana.
I don't know about that, but probably, yeah.
Yeah. It's difficult because, as I said, United have won trophies recently. We haven't, and we need to. And surely going for, I don't know, Europa League and getting Villa back in the Champions League, that's, to me, and even for Martinez, because he said it himself literally, would be more of a exciting thrill than maybe
an FA Cup
doing
United
better with. Because United aren't winning the Premier League or anything like that, I don't know, for a long time.
And they're definitely not winning a European competition next year.
Yeah, and for Martinez, well, what are you going to win at Man United? Maybe an FA Cup, maybe a Carabao Cup. All right, so that's what Onana did. That's what other players did. You're not
special.
You're not special for doing that at Man United. Not one bit. Can he play a part in their rise? Yeah, maybe. But Man United's rise, they get to 4th. Mark Goldbridge is still slagging them off, and everyone's still criticising them for whatever happens. Man United's standard, they think, is to constantly now just win the league. No matter where they've come from, that's their goal. That's their aspiration all the time. Even Amorim says it, because that is the standard that you're judged against, even though it's false and wrong.
And United aren't getting to that level whilst Martinez is still actively playing.
That's what I was going to. So
it's 5 or 6 years away at least.
Yeah, if he was 25, I'd be like, well, okay, do it, but spend the rest of your career there. No one will remember the team that helped them along the way. They'll remember the team that won it.
Yeah. If I say this player wants to go to United or Tottenham or probably not Chelsea this year, but Chelsea of a couple of seasons ago, your thing would be why? Football-wise, that club is not competitive at the moment.
Yeah.
And the thing that is often used as a draw for players is we want to be playing Champions League football and we want to be competing. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of football's bigger myths. It's wages. United can pay massive wages. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it, really.
I genuinely don't think that really comes into his thinking too much. I think it's there, and as he gets older, he'll be more aware that this is now one of my final contracts, or one of my final contracts, not the final. But equally, you wouldn't go to Man United because if you're Martinez, you're not that good. You could go to Athletic. And I know other clubs would need to sell a goalkeeper to get you in, but you don't have to go to United as a. He could play for Atletico. He could play for all these different teams. He would be choosing Man United not just for the money though. He would still be choosing it as a project sort of thing. But I think it's too late for him to be involved in that.
Okay. Let's talk style of play a little bit from Ricardo. We've had a few system evolutions under Unai, and we seem to shed the previous system as we move forward. For example, the high line from 2023. We didn't really do that in 24. Would we not be stronger or more unpredictable to have these to revert to at times? Felt like we got quite deep at times last season, which that made us less aggressive.
I want us to play the high line again. To be honest, again,
I do as well.
Unai's a better coach than me, I think.
I think.
If people don't get my sarcasm. I look at what Barcelona are doing under Hansi Flick, and they play very high line. It's very intense. PSG as well. I watched the game against Atletico in the Club World Cup, and Atletico hardly got out almost ever. You clip a ball into the midfielder, try and take it down, and they're on you straight away. So I like the high line. I like the intensity that we played with. I'd be interested to see how we played it with Mings now in the team, because obviously he didn't play in that season because of injury. Anana's here now, Maatsen. That would be an interesting one for me. But I prefer that than sitting deeper, because I think that's when you are susceptible to games like the Man United one, when we're camped in our own half and we can't get out and we're poor on the ball. I think it just sets you up nicely to, even if you are on a poor or bad day, you can have territory in their half. And we have enough quality, at least at the moment, to make a difference. And we scored so many goals in that season as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
We conceded quite a lot. We conceded loads, considering the level we were at. Last season we conceded less, but still a lot. But we didn't score anywhere near as much.
Yeah, I think there's two interesting things for that style of play for next season. One is a second video that we're going to do today that will be out later in the week. It suits Pau Torres, his style of football. Last year's style of football doesn't. Sitting back is not his game. Being on the ball and being further forward is. And I think what happens with Emi Martinez as well, because you need that kind of sweeper-keeper role to play a high line, that if a ball does come over the top, his starting position is way further up the hill, just deal with it.
Than what it was against Højlund.
If that keeper wants to kind of stay back and be solid and resolute and don't concede basically first, and that ball comes over the top and our players on the halfway line and your goalkeeper's still in his penalty area, that's a recipe for disaster. The goalkeeper needs to be up here as well. But it'll be interesting to see how Villa evolve again, because we've done that every year under Emery so far. Couple of questions. Adrian, who is going on the mural outside Villa Park? If there was to be one made, obviously.
I missed that,
I missed that plan. For me, I'd go John McGinn, says Adrian, sorry.
I
don't think it would be current players if Villa were to do this. It's too risky, isn't it?
Yeah, I think John McGinn's probably the one that isn't risky, but also just...
Even so, though, it's...
And also, we're in the lens of the last, 7 years or something, where we've done really well to go from the Championship to where we are now. And McGinn's played his part, Mings has played his part. But we've also got 150 years of history in there as well, where we've achieved things. And
that's the thing for me. Like, Liverpool obviously have a lot, don't they?
Why would you have... This is nothing against John McGinn whatsoever, and he'll know, why would you have McGinn but not Sid Cowans? I don't hate having those kind of debates, because it kind of divides the fan base a little bit. Even when you had the picture gallery, the long picture of players, former players, already it brings up, why isn't it on there? Why isn't? And I like celebrating it, but then it also, you kind of exclude people then. So it's difficult. We have certain key figures in our history which needs to be celebrated, but I don't want to kind of have a single one.
Yeah.
Especially, and no offence to John McGinn, a player who's done amazingly well in his career at Villa and is still going. And maybe we do go on and win something under him. He would be one of a few that have done that, not going from the Championship to that, but just had a really successful spell.
To be fair, actually, I was just about to say, like, when you've got current players, you've obviously got the risk of leaving. Like
the people who decide what that mural is, they have an attachment to John McGinn.
Yeah.
If we did it in another 20 years, we might have another player like that, whereas 30, 40 years ago. Because
you could have Emi Martinez be a great goalkeeper, been here 5 years, a figure that is, like, iconic or whatever. If he leaves now, then what happens? But you've got that one that was done, I presume, by the club down by the back of the Holt that Ollie Watkins is on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what happens if he used to leave? Does that stay there because he's our record goal scorer, or is it like, well, you don't play for us anymore?
No, that goes.
So
yeah, that's got to go.
That's part of a problem for me then.
Yeah,
that's why it has to be a historical thing.
Yeah, I'd like it to be a permanent thing, let's just say, and that's why I wouldn't kind of go current. I'd go previous when we've celebrated and done something substantial. Obviously, when you
unless, like you said, if we go on to win a trophy while John McGinn is captain, then you do it.
Yeah, I guess you've got European Cup and whatnot. That stuff is celebrated trophies as well. Towards the player car park and whatnot. So I guess the mural bits, maybe you do want to make it current because it celebrates kind of current and
with the
past.
Expectation that it's always kind of revolving. Every couple of years we'll have a new one.
And if that is the case, then I'd slap John McGinn on it tomorrow. Does he have? He's not anywhere, is he?
Don't think so.
Which is mental. He should be on there.
You could have a Mings and McGinn one.
If there's anyone that should be on there, it should be McGinn or Mings.
Actually, I think is Martinez on that one with
with
Watkins.
Yeah, Martinez, Mings, and Rachel Daly, I think.
Yeah.
So if it changes, then fine. But I will. I guess I'm going full circle and saying McGinn should have a mural.
Okay, right. Final question of this show from Steve. I think this was from Spotify actually. Question for you both: would you rather Villa win the Premier League, Champions League, and FA Cup? I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Forget the rest of it. In the next 5 years, definitely yes. But you're not able to go and watch any game live in the stadium for all of that 5 year period.
Yeah.
Or you can go to every game for a 5 year period.
Yeah.
But Villa win nothing. It's always the win something, isn't it, for me?
Yeah.
I'll take the hit. I won't go then.
If it was you can't watch Villa for the rest of your life or something, that's completely different.
Yeah, but
I'd say it's in League Two if it meant
Villa are going to be successful. I'll watch it on TV. I'll see it on social media, YouTube.
We'd be set up pretty well after that.
Yeah,
so I'll take that.
I'll take year 6 when we might win everything again because we've just won stuff before.
Yeah.
And the kind of the beauty or whatever, for want of a better word, of doing something like this, there'll be X amount of people listening to this who don't go to Villa Park every week.
Yeah.
And would obviously take that. Like, that's their way of supporting the club.
Yeah, for 12 years. Well, I said 12 years, but obviously started following Villa when I knew that they were a thing when I was like 5 or whatever it was. But I wasn't a season ticket holder until I was in my teens. So you'd go like every now and again, and it would be like some of the best memories I have as a kid. To kind of, I've still got it in my head now. When I first I got a very brief 1 second memory in my head of standing in the Trinity and just looking around and being like, what the? Because it's so grand.
Yeah.
You know, if you got that when you first went in.
Do you remember your first game?
Yeah, West Ham. Yeah, we lost.
What year would that have been then?
It was January 2006, I believe.
Yeah, my first games would have been around that era, a little bit before. See, I'm different to you. My memory's poor anyway, and you know this. I've got a memory of a game, but I've checked records since. That I remember game doesn't happen.
I think we've done this before.
Yeah, we spoke about this before.
Yeah.
I've got a memory of going to a Villa League Cup game against a lower league opposition on a night game in 2004, 5, 6, kind of window there. And I remember going back and checking footballarchive.com or whatever.
It didn't exist.
Have a night game in that kind of period against a lower league opposition, and the game hasn't happened. So I don't know what my first game was, but that's what I picture.
Surely
night,
your dad
cold. I think we spoke about it before. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I'm confusing my own memory and it wasn't lower league opposition and it was just somebody crap.
I have 2
2
memories from that West Ham game. One of them was walking past the concourse and seeing, when you walk and you can see like the opening of where you'd walk into, just like a flash of players warming up, and I was like, oh, whoa. And then the other one was just walking out and just being like,
this is pretty big.
Whoa. Yeah, not the pitch, but just the stand.
Yeah.
Like, just.
I have all those same feelings,
but you don't know what it was.
I don't know the specific game, which is crazy. Yeah. Final thing then to talk about, we did a live Q&A at the back end of last week, which was really good fun. We did, I think it was an hour and 10 minutes. However,
we lost half of it.
Only about 50 minutes actually went out because the platform we use called StreamYard had a global outage whilst we were on air with some other websites.
Lucky that
as well.
We got through some of it.
A lot of things were down actually the day that we did that. And these things happen, right? Sometimes the tech kind of lets you down, and that's besides the point. But we had a really good chat in there about some things that we've not spoken about again, because it's kind of, we were getting asked questions live and we were just reacting to whatever came through. We had a good old debate about like success under Emery and stuff, which we can probably do another time anyway. At the very end of that, and was in the live title, was something and podcast plans. And we had like a 5-10 minute chat about next year, and none of that was saved. So we're going to do that now very briefly again. Again, I don't know what we said the other day, but we've basically got plans or aspirations to make what we do now better, basically. We're both happy, and Matt as well, and everyone who comes on the podcast with us, of what 2024-25 look like, covering Champions League and whatever else. We can't control if Villa are good next season, sadly. We cover the games and however they go. Obviously, if Villa are successful, that's good for us. We're happy. We get to talk about good things. But we're happy with our kind of current output to a point, and we want to either add a little bit, tweak a little bit, and make things better generally.
I think, especially in what we do, our industry and the media landscape in general, it's always evolving like really quickly.
Yeah.
So you have to try and make improvements to your work, even if you don't think or you can't see or envisage how it would look exactly. I think you have to try and improve it.
Yeah.
And even small improvements, I say small improvements, just changes sometimes to freshen your content up.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be...
We've been doing this 6 years now.
Yeah. And if you look, I mean, you'll know better than me, but you go from recording maybe 1 or 2 things a week over the telephone and whatever, and then there'll be other bits in between, but to StreamYard, to it in real life, to having this space, and then to having what we're going to do next year as well. You have to keep evolving it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously we've got this recording space. For those that are listening, we're in person together, which should be obvious by now, and we want to be in here, maybe once a week. We're going to tweak the preview a little bit to be more kind of fan involved.
Yeah.
We think... I mean, those episodes get decent numbers, so the audience might think...
We think it's a little bit stale.
We don't look forward to that as much as the other stuff that we do. I think that's fair to say. Like, we'll do it.
I always look forward to it.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, like of all the things,
it's black and white.
It's
too structured.
It's guesswork previews, and I feel like this about the industry generally. You and me talking for 10 minutes about what team might play. Team news comes out the next day, and we're completely wrong, or we're completely right. What difference does it make?
Because at the time we do it, Emery might not even selected his team.
Yeah, exactly. Like score predictions and stuff, fine, but it's a bit this, and it feels a little bit. If the audience want us to talk about John Duran, obviously last year, using an example that's not relevant, but we don't, because that's not in our strict running order, because Emery didn't discuss him. It's like, well, we're kind of missing an opportunity there.
We'd like to kind of open the floor a little bit for that preview show to be what the fans think ahead of the game.
Yeah.
What do they want us to talk about? What are their concerns? What do they want to get off their chest that we could bring up? We don't have to talk about it. Just literally, like, I don't know. Here's 10 thoughts ahead of the game from these different people. We're going to chat about some of them. Other comments, and thoughts are literally just what people want to get out in the world.
Yeah.
Because we have obviously the privilege of doing this as here's what we think. You can disagree with us, you can agree with us. But if you want to disagree with us or agree with us, let us know as well.
Yeah, you going to the presser is kind of our USP, if you want to call it that. So we'll still talk about what was Emery like, what mood was in the room, what's the injury news. But then rather than doing an 11 and a prediction and whatever else, it's right. Dave says this, Steve says that. Oh, this is an interesting point from so-and-so, and that's the podcast then for the preview. We'll still do them live, I'm sure, on the Friday evening usually. But we want that to be more of a kind of two-way connection.
Yeah, a bit more engaging, a bit more interaction.
Two-way this way, two-way that way.
It feels sometimes like we're just talking about it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And
which is fine. People have been watching that, so it's not bad.
Yeah, and it's what anyone else would do in the pub.
Yeah, we want to change that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it feel a bit more involved with everyone else.
And that brings in the mailbag that I mentioned earlier for one of the questions, we've got a link now, which is like a Google form. I don't think you need an account to fill it in, but I might be wrong. That link is going to be in the top comment of every YouTube podcast from now till we decide not to do it. It'll be on social media. It'll always be exactly the same link. It literally just says something like, tell us your thoughts or your predictions or opinions or whatever, and there's a text box. You fill it in, that gets sent to us, and we can use them. So people have already started filling it in now, but that same link will also be used for our Brentford preview in January. It's just keep going back to the same link.
It'll be our job to kind of filter.
Yeah, they're organised by
dates,
so I can see which is new and which isn't. And we will say, Tuesday, we want to do an episode about Pau Torres. Here's the mailbag link. You tell us your thoughts as well, and we'll incorporate some of them, because we do a lot of pre-recorded content that we don't have any audience engagement with, and we want to try and bring that in somehow. So the mailbag is something that will be across every social media. You will find it. Trust me, if you go looking for it, even briefly, you'll see it. And then the final thing, very quickly, is the Q&A, the episode that we've just done. We're still doing them because we think that's a really strong piece of content and it has that audience interaction. However, most of them, because we want to increase the production quality, have been either in person or pre-recorded. And that will still be the case somewhere, of course it will. We want to use this space, like we just said. But we want to start bringing in live Q&As, like we did last week, and having that back and forth that we had a question about leaving Villa Park. We answer it, and in this format, we just move on.
Yeah.
Whereas the live chat said, well, I think it's selling your soul if you do that. So we go, oh, Jack says this. Then we go again, and that feels different.
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
always best to have a debate, and like I genuinely don't care if people disagree with what we say or what I say. Like that is, if anything, I want that. You want.
Yeah, because normally we don't see that
conversation.
disagreement till the comments after we've recorded it 2 days ago.
Yeah,
to get it straight away, we can answer it in real time.
Yeah, like this job, what we do, everything else in between would be pretty boring if what we said people agreed with all the time, and we agree with each other on things, and sometimes we do. You can't help it, you're not going to be fake about it, but it's always best to have a debate with people and to chat about things. That's why audience interaction, I think, is really important for what we want to do next year. Yeah,
and also the in-person ones, I've titled it internally between us, basically, as taking the Q&A on the road. And that might mean literally sometimes. We want to film things in a different way. We want to meet in person.
Make massive traffic jams walking down.
Maybe not necessarily in here. Maybe it's at Hockley. Maybe it's somewhere in the city centre. Maybe it's at Villa Park. Whatever it is, we want to get maybe alternate pre-recorded and live ones, maybe, or we do a pre-recorded on a Monday and a live Q&A on a Thursday, whatever it might look like. But rather than just coming in here and answering 10 questions, maybe we go and have a walk around the Boring, or we have a walk around Villa Park, or whatever it is, and kind of freshen things up visually as well.
That's it. Yeah.
And for those that listen, that won't really mean anything because you can't see it anyway. But
if you're listening to it, you're choosing not to watch it in the first place.
So most of our audience that watch, you'll get to see something different, and we get to be a bit more creative with different things as well.
Yeah,
so
a bit more personal, maybe.
Yeah, we are really happy with everything on the podcast. If we weren't, we wouldn't be doing it, and we love that the feedback that we get is useful, and people obviously like what we do. But if we just did exactly the same again for 2025, I'd feel like that's a backward step, even if views and whatever were always going up.
Yeah.
I feel like you've got to be doing more, and that's kind of what we've worked on over the last few weeks, and we're both really excited with the plans that we've got, and start bringing them to you from the next few weeks. Like, it might not necessarily be next week because you might go on holiday or whatever, but from the first game or the first weekend prior to the season starting, we kind of say, right, this is the 2025 season now starts here. This is how we cover it from day one to day whatever in May. Yeah.
And I'd sit here now and say something like, oh, some of the changes you might not like, but I don't think that would be the case. Nothing's changing in terms of what you watch.
If you like what we do, you'll like
I think
this as well.
Yeah, and obviously if it isn't for everybody, like, the point is that we're not trying to change how things are done, trying to set kind of, I don't know. It's more about us trying to improve. That's the key thing. That's what's important to remember.
That'll do for this one, John. Thanks for joining me and sharing your time with us as always. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Claret and Blue podcast, and we'll be back again with something else in a few days.